Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle, and I am back again to read some Law of One material and share with you my reflections and perceptions on them. And today, being Love Day, you know, the hallmark Love Day, Valentine's Day, so I thought. Obviously, this was going to be about love, right? But what's important about love? And in my opinion, one of the most major, huge, big deals about love and, well, just life in general is forgiveness. So today we're going to talk about forgiveness and karma and how those two are very intimately related to each other. Okay, so just gonna start, I suppose. You can get all this information at my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com, and there's links to all the LL research material where you can read all of this for free. So thank you. And this will be from session 18.12, and then I'll add another one in after. So to begin, 1812 starts with the quote, Questioner, you stated yesterday that forgiveness is the eradicator of karma. I am assuming that balanced forgiveness for the full eradication of karma would require forgiveness not only of other selves, but forgiveness of self. Am I correct? Ra answers, Ra, I am Ra. You are correct. We will briefly expand upon this understanding in order to clarify. Forgiveness of other self is forgiveness of self. An understanding of this insists upon full forgiveness upon the conscious level of self and other self, for they are one. A full forgiveness is thus impossible without the inclusion of self. Okay, and then we're just going to include a second quote for clarity. So then this is going to be from session 34.5. So the questioner asks, if an entity develops what is called karma in an incarnation, is there then programming that sometimes occurs so that he will experience catalysts that will enable him to get to a point of forgiveness, thereby alleviating the karma? Ra answers, Ra, I am Ra. This is in general correct. However, both self and any involved other self may at any time through the process of understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness ameliorate these patterns. This is true at any point in any incarnative pattern. Thus, one who has set in motion an action may forgive itself and never again make that error. This also breaks or stops what you call karma. All right, so let's then go into why would forgiveness of self and other self be the same thing? Well, it's because we are, we are one. We are creatures of unity. So with that, there is no separation between you and other selves. That's why we refer to them as other selves, not others, or at least that's why Ra refers to them as that way. So, if you were to basically say, maybe I forgive myself, but I don't forgive the other, or vice versa, I can forgive others, but I can't forgive myself. Well, I'm sorry, but that is not a full 360 degrees of forgiveness. Forgiveness requires, understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness and love, right? So moving forward past whatever it is that is stopping you from living in full forgiveness. Now, I would like to mention that it is, in my opinion, quite easy to say that you forgive somebody, but in reality, do you actually forgive them? So I really juggle with that a lot, just in terms of myself and speaking with other people and, like seeking to be perfect, right? You sometimes think like, yeah, for sure, I could definitely do that. I could forgive anybody, right? I'm a person of unconditional love, but you are human. And we have our petty little human, well, what would we call them? Grudges, I suppose, right? Like we have all these reasons why this person has done something to us and why they shouldn't be forgiven. It's like basically anytime you say the word but, well, now you've like I'm sorry, right? You've missed the point. It's sort of like, yeah, but well, you may be true, right? Like somebody might be straight up victimizing you or whatever. But if you love and forgive yourself, you would also have the strength to probably treat yourself as you feel you should be treated, which would mean to remove yourself from that situation in love for both you and the other person so that you can be a demonstration of what you believe someone who respects themselves acts like, right? So even like forgiveness and acceptance, it's kind of tough for some people because they think that that means I have to accept everything as it is and like love evil things. And it's not that you have to, right? It's more that just you accept where those things are born from. And those things are born from love. Like everything in this universe is love, is a distortion of love. So at least if you can just keep that in the forefront of your mind, then when you see somebody acting out, doing negative things, that's their path. They've sort of used their free will to decide that this is their way of seeking love. They're seeking love of self, right? There's still paths of love. I mean, that maybe sometimes isn't brought up enough. Service to self path versus the service to others path. They're both versions of seeking love. It's just that the universe, the creator neither blinks at the dark or the light. If you would like to seek the dark, all free will to you. And if you'd like to seek the light, well, great. Come join the unity and the resonance of the truth versus sort of living in what would be considered a temporary untruth or the path that is not. Right. So if you're on this path of unity, of understanding that we are all one, then you would do well to forgive yourself and to forgive others for the alleviation of karma. Well, not just because of that, right? Like you're obviously just doing it because it's the right thing to do. But we like to, the spiritual community, they love that word karma. So let's just talk about karma a bit. Karma would be unfinished business, if you will, right? In the raw material they state elsewhere, which I don't have in front of me, so I'm just going to paraphrase it, but something about once you set in motion certain things, the only thing that can sort of stop the motion is forgiveness. So that's the idea of karma. It's like, and here's another thing that I would like to say too. Things are just coming to my mind as I speak, which is exactly why I do these podcasts. So the other thing that comes to mind is that in order to create karma, they state somewhere that one must be, what do they say? Consciously unloving. So there's something there if you understand that Ra uses words very specifically and on purpose. So what would it mean to be consciously unloving, right? Like that is what, in my opinion and what they state here, creates karma. You can be somewhat unconsciously unloving, right? And it's sort of like there's a lack of responsibility on your part because you're not fully aware of how you're acting. But once you are aware of the way you act and the way that you somewhat affect other people, and that you understand sort of what it's like to be loving versus not loving, right? You can sort of just determine that from your heart and how you're interacting with people and just like the truth of your being, like what's coming out, right? Yeah, like when you're doing well and when you're not, I would suggest, right? So it's sort of like, are you letting your ego be consciously unloving in order to get even, in order to balance some power in your life, in order to sort of, get that grudge out of you in a way, right? Like these are all sorts of things where you can be consciously unloving. So those in turn will create more karma, in which case, right, it's sort of like you're asking for a future lesson, a future experience with that person, because only through further experiences with this person are you going to sort of be forced to look into it further, which that might mean actually creating more drama for you, until you learn that the only way out of this is to learn to love and be patient with that other self that may be causing you a lot of distress. Lessons of love aren't easy, right? And people are put in our lives both so we can learn lessons of love and so they can learn lessons of love. So within that, right, forgiveness of themselves, and then we move on to, I suppose, the important part now of forgiving yourself. So some people, kind of depends who you are, I guess. Some people find it easier to forgive other selves, and maybe some people find it easier to forgive themselves. So I suppose I would sort of look at that like if you're a little bit more egotistical in a way, like you really appreciate yourself, right? Then you might find it easy to forgive yourself. A little bit narcissist, right? That's okay. We all are. And then, the other way, which I would sort of suggest is more like a very agreeable person, quite compassionate person. They're going to be really probably easier. to forgive other-selves, and in which case then they're sometimes very hard on themselves. So both of those situations, you still haven't gone the 360 degrees of full forgiveness, right? So if you're one of those people who find it easy to forgive other-selves and you find it hard to forgive yourself, I don't know what to tell you. In other words, it's just to be kind to yourself. Clean up your inner dialogue. This is what I state quite often. I find, if you can be kind to yourself, the purity with which you can be kind to yourself somewhat equals the purity that you can be kind to other people. It's sort of like you can only extend a level of purity that you can give to yourself, that you can give to other people. It's almost like measuring your power, right? It's like it doesn't really matter whether you apply it to yourself or to somebody else. It's somewhat the same thing. So forgiveness of self, forgiveness of other self, same thing. There really is no difference because we live in an illusion of separation. And for you to feel that, there's some excuse as to why you can't forgive this person, well, I'm sorry that, whether you're going to learn that lesson in this lifetime or another, that is the nature of karma and free will and setting things in motion, right? So they say, I'm not sure if they stated exactly in the quotes that I read you, but forgiveness stops the wheel of karma. That's the way forward. It's the way we free up our energy bodies, create less distortion and blockages in our bodies by loving others, right? Ross states somewhere else, to completely unblock the yellow ray, the third chakra, one must love every entity which is in relation to the self. And why would you do that? Well, that's your third chakra. That's the right before you enter your fourth chakra, the heart chakra. So you can't enter the heart chakra of love and understanding and compassion, acceptance, if you haven't quite done the forgiveness part in the yellow ray. So it's a lot of heart work, I would suggest, is about forgiveness, which is why I wanted to make a little podcast about it today. So we don't need to go into it too much, right? It's just pretty simple. But I'll just remind you that one thing about trying to forgive people, I would just suggest to be patient with yourself. I myself have, had maybe, let's just give an example. I've had a relationship in the past. That person, I tried a lot to, sort of practice unconditional love to a degree that I was capable of, and which led to sort of a lot of heartbreak and misery and betrayal, right? Because I can't control what that other self does, but I can try my best to love them and understand them from the perception that they're coming from. But I am human, and me being betrayed and feeling lesser than, right, for many reasons, we won't really go into too much, but it creates a bit of bitterness and inside yourself, and it's very difficult to forgive in that situation, right? Like some days in the week I feel, yeah, I forgive, and then later in the week I, bitter and angry again about it. So it's okay. It comes with time. I can say now it's been like a few years since that time, and it's probably taken me a good 2 years to really, truly find forgiveness in a deeper part of me, that I can say that I've forgiven this person now and not really feel like I'm lying to myself. So I guess, just be patient with yourself, right? Forgiveness isn't just born in a moment. You can't force it all the time. Sometimes it just takes time, right? Your heart needs healing. You might have to go through some other lessons before you can fully forgive yourself or that other self, right? It's just the nature of who we are. I think we always expect ourselves to be perfect and, some amazing light-filled spiritual entity. Yeah. Well, ain't that it? Wouldn't that be fun, right? But I mean, we're all human here. Perfection seems to be beyond us. You're perfectly imperfect, and I would like to remind you of that, because accepting your imperfections as perfect is somewhat a beautiful way to accept and love yourself. And as you're able to do that, right, you can accept and love other people a lot easier. It's sort of like as I used to chastise myself for doing this or doing that, I now instead try to just give encouraging words inside my head. And I find that then, when someone else is doing something stupid in front of me, I very much can just sort of smile in patience and wait for them to ask a question or something that I might be able to assist in. It's just a matter of it's sort of an art, this whole thing. So okay, guys, thank you for listening. I appreciate you joining me. If you appreciate my podcast, I like to give this service for free in my Instagram, so I just appreciate reciprocation if you'd like, and you can join my Patreon, shoot me a one-time PayPal. If not, no big deal. I love you anyways, and if you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. That always helps as well with algorithms and stuff. And yeah, so I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. Remember, forgiveness and love, they go hand in hand. And yeah, take care, you guys. Love you.